So welcome back. We're holding on page 258 in the Igeres HaKodesh Chaf, the 20th. So we must start, and this is the way we're probably going to start everyone, just to have clarity on this particular study of this particular Igeres epistle, that this is unusual. It's not the regular, of course you can't say it's not the regular of Tanya because it is part of Tanya, but I mean the simplest term is that, I say it's not regular, that is very distinct in everything we learned till now. Things were much easier. Of course, everything has to be explained. Tanya, Kadisha, every word, every perig, every geras of the five segments of Tanya. We know there's five. We mentioned also a few times. It's a most famous word of Tzemach Tzedek. The reason why there's the five segments, because this is the Teres Shebiksav of Teres Achsidus, but every word in Tanya really, the toil, try to understand it, but in the end of the day, it's Chizas Chabad. Al Rebbe made it relatable, understandable to the human intellect, to human Chochmah Bina Das. We can appreciate and understand every word, every message, every phrase of Tanya, of the Holy Sefer. However, and therefore, if you notice in all the classes up till now, from the very beginning of Likutei Amorim and Shayich B'Emunah and Igeres HaTshuva and Igeres HaKodesh, there was a flow. There was a constant flow in all these studies and all these presentations. It comes to Chof, you test. This was a kind of a beginning, a little bit of a foretaste, but nothing like Chof. It's deep, it's complicated, it's unusual. And we even have thought maybe to start from Chafala, from Yetesta Chafala, but I felt no. We went through every single chapter, every single Igeres and the entire Igeres HaKodesh, and there's classes on the entire Sefer, and as such, we're going to go through it as well. Chaf, it's lengthy, it's deep, it's complex, but nonetheless, we're going to learn it. We're going to try our best to explain it. Of course, if you pay attention, you follow the text, it'll be understandable. But I have to just give this backdrop that it is distinct, and you find a little bit as you're following, especially if you follow the other classes, you see the contrast. But if you're even new to the class over here and you see it's a little bit deep, you should know that this is exclusive to Perikov. There's one similar chapter later in Kuntris Achron, but this is so much time for that. As it's Hashem, till we get there. But we will note that as well. As it's Hashem and Akutis Shah when we get there. But in the meantime, Chaf is different. Chaf is distinct. Chaf is also a lengthier chapter, so this is going to take us a while to go through this chapter. So with this introduction, we will move on. We were holding pretty much about 8 lines from the top. The word begins, Ha'ein Sof, the less Machshavet Tfisa Beklal. And Okamishkosov Upani Leiro, as we were holding yet again in 258, towards the beginning of Igeres HaKodesh Chaf, Igeres HaKodesh being the 4th segment of Sefer Tanya, known as the Igeres epistles. It's distinct, different than the Holy Igeres HaKodesh, different than the first 3 segments, which are every chapter is connected to the previous chapter. The study is sequential. There's a message in Igeres HaTshuva, and Shayich B'Emunah. Shayich B'Emunah, of course, the oneness of Hashem, Igeres HaTshuva, Al Rebbe's elaboration on this unique mitzvah of Tshuva, and then Likutei Amorim with its overall message, even though we did mention it, 53 chapters. It's lengthier, and there's different groups within. You can group the different parts of Likutei Amorim in a way that you could, the famous, let's say from beginning till Yud Zayin, then Yud Ches till Chav Hey. There's different messages will come out in Likutei Amorim in different chapters, which are grouped together basically. But nonetheless, they're not formally grouped together. You learn Tanya time and again. You see the very connection from the very first chapter of Tanya till the 53rd. The more you learn Tanya, you see the light. You see that unique, exceptional message which threads through the entire Likutei Amorim. Igeres HaKodesh is different. Igeres HaKodesh is different letters written to different communities, or even to the entire Anash, which would be Anshe Shlomeinu, the Alter Rebbe's followers. It eventually becomes a timeless message to all of Am Yisrael for perpetuity. Understandably, this is the Sefer Tanya. The Rebbe one says about Tanya it would be Nachlas HaKlal, as we see it evidently today. But at the end of the day, that particular time, the Rebbe was addressing a certain idea. It was learning Torah, Tefillah, Tzedakah. We did mention that you definitely see the significant majority of Geras HaKodesh is about the mitzvah Tzedakah, which is a backdrop to this also, the famous Aliyah of Menel Haradokir and his Chassidim, his Talmidim, which went through a very difficult time. The Rebbe had an enormous campaign to support them and their families. We did have a lengthier presentation about the Holy Geras HaKodesh in Yud. We do mention this periodically, especially for the newcomers in Yud, the 10th chapter, which is 10 back. It's all on the easy to access, wherever you're watching, but the original website, tanyaonline.com, tanyaonline.com. It is set up in a way that it's easy to access. That you get us in all the previous classes, and for example, we started Chav, I think, last week. So right now, all the latter classes are on the top, and then it makes its way down from the very beginning of Likutei Moharan, which we merited to learn together and conclude in a few segments, and presently in Geras HaKodesh. So tanyaonline.com, you can see the beginning of 10, we had a full presentation of the backdrop of Geras HaKodesh, worthwhile to look there as well. So every Geras is distinct, and every Geras is there's not direct connection from one to the other, even though the Alter Rebbe himself cross-references from one to the other. We do when we see a certain idea which is explained elaborately in other Geras and other places of Tanya. And privilege that the whole site is set up, that we have the entire Sefer Tanya up till now on this site, that and it's so easy to access. So a certain idea discussed Lamed Hey of Likutei Moharan. It's a click away. There's an advantage. You have the text set up in a separate scroll bar, as we mentioned from time to time. So this Geras HaKodesh, which Alter Rebbe begins with over here, and what he explains throughout this Geras Chav, but presently, starkly, the difference of the creation, the emanation, the expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a way of Ilo va'olu, would be loosely translated cause and effect, or the Bria Yeshmi Ayin, the phenomenon of ex nihilo, something from nothing, which can't say really something from nothing, because the real something is Hashem, the real nothingness is creation, but the way we see it is the tangibility of Elam Haza, establishes an important statement and an impactful statement, and we say, where does this come from? We have to find the creator and the creation, because what is overwhelming, what we see, is the created being. We see the creation. We don't identify easily the creator. Why so? Because this is the way the creation was created in a manner of yesh me ayin. The ayin, the reason why it's ayin, even though Hashem is the real yesh, is because it's hard to find, it's hard to identify. That's the way they said it. That's the way Hashem himself established it. It's not only there is the weakness of creation to find and identify the creator, it's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the creation, yesh mi ayin, something from nothing, meaning to say that ex nihilo process, which established this phenomenon that creation looks so real, and we have to find the creator in creation. Yet there's another evolution of HaKadosh Baruch Hu known to be ilo va'olu, cause and effect, which there is an appreciation of the olu to its ilo, to its progenitor, if you will, but it's not really progenitor, it's the one which gives it, establishes it, its entity, based on what the ilo is. That would be the effect, that would be the olu. And Alter gives it, for example, a few examples, and because there is that evolution, precisely the way of ilo va'olu, the olu always recognizes its ilo, it feels it, it senses it, because it feels that it's a mere production of it. Just as a quick example, seichel and midot, famously, intellect and emotion. Emotion, a direct derivative, a direct result of an intellect, meaning to say you understand something thoroughly. A midah, an attribute, is born. An attribute evolves. For example, you understand something before you didn't understand before you see the exact evolution. You understood about a certain program, and you feel that this is going to be very beneficial for your mind, and eventually beneficial also for your well-being. As an example, and you're common, you like the program, you like the Excel, let's say a computer program as an example, and it's going to bring you a lot of expand your well-being, expand your wealth as an example, and you appreciate it and you understand it, and you identify it as something which is attractive to your mind, because your mind captures the thought, the intellect behind that program, and the compilation, the comprise of all the details, and your mind understands it in a way that not just like peripherally, but it becomes really, you truly appreciate it, which is the idea of das, as explained, not to go into that. What happens is that your heart ignites to gravitate to it. I want it, I need it, and that's something that is beyond just a intellectual evolution that, oh, it makes sense to me, maybe it should be mine. No, your heart ignites. You really want it. You want to have it. You want to obtain it. You want to incorporate it into your system, into your schedule, into your means, let's say, of parnasa, of wealth, of maintaining yourself, your family. You want to bring it in, but that desire is a passionate desire based on the fact that your mind appreciated thoroughly how this could contribute so much to your mindset. Also, in other words, intellectually, you appreciate it. It's a brilliant program, so you gravitate to it. On top of that, you know that this could be very beneficial to you and your family. You need support as an example, so you gravitate to it even stronger, which means there's emotion which is created from, can't say created to be exact, which there's the evolves from that intellectual establishment. This which you understood and this which you perceived produces an emotion in alignment with this which you understood. So seichel would be the cause, the midah would be the effect, and the effect is always in tune with the cause. The moment your mind starts saying, maybe not, there's a little few faults and it's not so wouldn't it's not so deep, and maybe it wouldn't bring me the anticipated benefit that I originally understood and appreciated that this would bring me. Perhaps not. So right away, your emotion, the passion is immediately diffused. The gravitation to obtain it is immediately diminished. Why? Because you see that synchronicity between mind, the synthesis between mind and heart, because the heart, that midah, that attribute, is a direct result and is a direct production of your seichel. So seichel would be the cause, midah would be the effect, and they're always in tune, one with each other. They recognize with each other. The passion identifies constantly, and the passion is based on and appreciates the intellectual buildup which established that passion towards that product. As an example, but there's tens and hundreds of examples. Cause and effect, seichel and midas, even different types of seichel. There are different things you understand which bring a certain fear, but not fear, more like a reverence. As an example, your mind understands that this person or this system to be conscientious about, and there's something, let's say, even you're talking about, we say reverence, an important person, someone hierarchy. King, as an example, when you understand his greatness, your mind captures his greatness. A true king, of course, we're not talking about tyranny, but a real king. Again, we don't have this in Western society. In democratic society, the phenomenon of king and subject, that we know about it, and you understand how the loftiness, the exaltedness that is of this individual, his king, his regality, and the more you understand it, the more your heart establishes a reverence. It's not only a fear, what's he going to do to me? It's a certain reverence, a sensation of reverence towards that personality. The mind and heart work in sync on a constant basis, and one recognizes the heart, which is the olo, recognizes its elo, as opposed to when you're talking about creation and the force of creation, the way Hashem created with the precision of creation, not evolution, not the extension of, but rather creation, kind of a disconnect of creator and creation. As you look at creation, you don't see you don't immediately or instinctively identify Creator. And in the end of the day, the only reason why creation exists, it's only because the Creator is pumping in its energy into creation. We learned so many times, namely in Shar Yichid V'Mona, to click away towards the very beginning, you can see it, and throughout, that Hashem constantly establishes creation every single day, and every single hour, every single minute, every single moment, every single second. Hashem is infusing that energy which establishes creation to the way it look like any level of creation, but let's say even this which we are used to, which is this world, Elam Haza. You look at that stone, you think it's lifeless. No, it's not lifeless. Hashem is every second pumping in energy and life into that stone to make it look like and be that very stone. Hashem would pull back on that energy. The stone wouldn't just break apart or decay. It would disappear, literally. So the whole energy of the stone is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you look at the stone, you would think, oh, the stone is screaming loudly, of course metaphorically, demonstrating its creator, because its whole existence is its creator. And yet you look at the stone, here I am, creator, what are you talking about? I am here, and look at me, I'm pretty firm, strong, robust, if you will, or firm and with determination of the way I present myself as a strong, mighty stone. And so to all of creation, basically. And why so? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Machadish, Mahaba, Machaya, Tamid, constantly is giving life and created force and created energy of creation into the Bria, into creation. So why isn't the creation demonstrate its creator, its force, its soul force? Without Hashem's energy, there's nothing. Nothing is no thing at all. So the whole mitzias, the whole entity of that stone or anything which we find within creation is all about the godly energy, which is Mahaba, Machai, Mekayim, which is giving it life and existence every single second, every single millisecond. Answer: this was a by design pattern of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way He created, that there should be a, not disconnect, but there should be a dissonance. There should be a kind of a veneer which would cover up creation from creator. That's the idea of yesh mi'ayin. It's by design. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Elam Ha, namely Elam Haza Gashmi for that matter. It's namely this physical world in this very manner of yesh mi'ayin. Does it change the fact that there's nothing within creation other than the creator? It doesn't change the fact. Of course, that's why we find the phenomenon of miracles. The blood within one moment turns to water, turns into blood, as an example, of course, referring to the 10 plagues, famous miracles, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu began in the very beginning. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu demonstrated to his B'ni B'cheri Yisrael, to his chosen son, which was Am Yisrael, when he took them out of Egypt. It started with the 10 plagues, 10 miracles. Water doesn't turn into blood. And so to all the other miracles, or the Kriyas Yamta, the splitting of the Red Sea, almost over about 2-3 million people walked through seamlessly a sea, and it's split into 12 paths for that matter, so perfectly. How does that happen with such perfection? And nobody just fell behind. Yes, the Egyptians did, but of Am Yisrael, nobody. Answer: why not? Because Baruch Hu is the very fabric and very vibe of creation is HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. So Hu Amar Vayehi he does what he wants. He is the creator. Creation is just, in the end of the day, there's nothing in creation other than the creator. So water to blood, okay, of course we celebrate miracles, we don't take it for granted, despite we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does everything and can do whatever he wants, but nonetheless, according to the Torah, we can understand this instinctively, that we don't push for miracles. A person should not try to elicit Hashem's miracle in vain. He should do everything that he can based on the rules of nature, which the nature is also tiv oish HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the nature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but nonetheless, this is something which we follow in our hishtadlus, and we're trying to make things happen. But periodically, if we're only honest, we constantly see Hashem's intervention. Again, the miraculous intervention, which breaks through nature. For that matter, we say in prayer every single day, what miracle do we see every single day? If we're only honest with ourselves, we know this could have gone a bit different, and God forbid, certain things which we know could have gone a bit different, it could have been catastrophic, and Hashem was right there with a miraculous intervention. So it does exist. And then the grand macro miracles like 10 plagues, as an example, the crossing of the sea, the manna. I mean, every generation, Hashem demonstrates overt miracles to Am Yisrael as a collective, and then individually we all identify Hashem as miracles. But we don't seek it. We don't try to constantly tap into the miraculous content because we're not meant to. We're not supposed to. Because Baruch Hu wanted us to make good in living in the natural confines of matters, and meaning to say, in the world of nature, and to sublimate it, to elevate, to refine nature, to introduce and to identify God and godliness within nature itself. That is the objective and goal. So if we just put nature on the side and we constantly establish our life based on Hashem's intervention, besides it's not good. The Gemara says every time Hashem has to miraculously intervene, it takes off the points, if you will, from the portfolio of the person. It's not a good thing to seek. Sometimes a person knows that according to nature he's stuck, and he's meant to seek and pray for Hashem's miraculous intervention. But it's not the establishment of a Yid's life or anybody. We try to do everything we can that nature should ultimately reveal that very reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even though periodically Hashem does miracles for us, because He wants us to see Him up close and to anchor that relationship with Him in a much deeper and much more intimate manner. So Hashem precisely periodically shows the Yid miracles, but it's not the way the person gets up in the morning, and person gets up and has a job, goes to work, and does whatever he can based on the rules of nature. But again, the rules of nature is also, nature is the tivoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The rules of nature are the rules of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The point is to introduce God and godliness into nature itself, which is again part of the master scheme of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is leidira b'tachtenim, in this very physical world. But in the end of the day, and this is also the reason why Hashem created creation in this fashion of ex nihilo, because He wanted that we should find the Creator within creation. It should not come naturally, different than the ilo va'olu, evolvement, cause and effect, where the olu always has that recognition by nature of its ilo, of its cause, as we just explained. So the Alter Rebbe, as an example, speaks about, say, the 10 spheres. Chachma being in every world, the 10 spheres. We learned about this myriads of times throughout the Likutei Amarim and in Shaykh B'Emunah, and in Yeres HaTshuva, always the 10 spheres in every single Olam, in every single world. Chachma being a das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod Yisod. So just like here, we use the example of Seichel, this intellect and emotion. And we say that this is Ilo Va'olu, cause and effect. Cause and the establishment, the result, which takes place because of that cause, which would be the effect, the Olu. But the Alter Rebbe points out there as an example that Chochma and Bina and Das, there's the three cognitive faculties, they're also evolve one each other as Olu, Chochma to Bina, which is Nekuda, Behechala, Bina expands on this very Nekuda. Chochma, you spoke about it many, many times. Then the person becomes close to this idea, as explained in the end of the third chapter, in the Likutei Amarim, the first segment. The idea of Das, why is Das distinct over Chochma Bina, even though Bina you understand the matter thoroughly, but Das is kind of becoming intimate with the idea, and therefore it has an impact. It produces Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod Yisod. When the Midas, Chesed would be Avo, Gvura would be Yira, we explained again so many times. And every Midah really evolves one from each other. And the evolvement of these midas are in a way of ilo va'olu, the ilo producing the olu, and the connection. You look at the yisod; it feels with the hod, and the hod feels the midah before the netzach. There's a seamless evolution from one to the other, and the netzach tiferes, the tiferes of gvura to chesed, and all of it to the chachma bina das, and the das how it evolves from bina, and the bina grabbing the Nikud of Chochmah, again, the connection between the two. So all this came about also in a way of Ilo Va'ol on high. That's why it evolves in the same way below, and even in the human condition as well. But from that, as an example, the evolving energy from all the way Chochmah Bina Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Yesod, Malchus, and Malchus should be the Malchus Chol Malchus Kol Olam. That energy should ultimately produce, let's say, a table, as an example, a physical object. All that would never ever produce a physical object, because the closeness of the Ol of the Elo, and you're talking about the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how would an infinite God with infinite energy, even through the system of Ol, that the ultimate production would be a physical table, which is the antithesis of the infinite phenomenon, or the phenomenon of infinity associated with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is a finite, tangible material. The beginning is an end. This, with the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if this would go not only 10 levels, which again, each level is a minimization of the previous energy, and which produces the next, and the next, and the next, and this would go on millions and billions and trillions and quintillion levels. In other words, the efficient minimization one over the other, you would never have the creation of anything physical, finite, because the fraction of infinity is also infinite, has also infinite koyach. As an example, talk about a yid. A yid's a chilik l'kamim al mamash. Every yid has part of the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just to quickly note in this spirit, the fraction of infinity is infinite. So as much as, even though it would be evolved many times, myriads of times to no end, it would never produce something that finite. As an example, like a stone or a table, anything which we are familiar with, an object, a created being, which demonstrates its finitude, demonstrates the finiteness of it in every aspect of it. It's limited, it has a size, and it's tangible. This is a finite object. How would you have from an infinite God? Doesn't matter how much it would involve the Elo to the Ol, that Elo becoming the Ol of the next, and so on and so forth. It would never still produce something finite, a created being. And for that very reason, and because HaKadosh Baruch Hu did want to have Gashmias of Elam Haza, this very physical, mundane, coarse Elam Haza, to be created. Why did he want it to be created? Good question. We can't really understand it. In the end of the day, it's Nis'ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Isli Dira B'Tachtem. Hashem had a very deep desire to have a physical world created, and the Yid should come introduce Emes Hashem Le'olam, a world which is the ultimate Helen Behester, Abayde of Nibra, the concealment of Creator from creation, and the Yid should come down through his Aved of learning Torah and doing mitzvahs and Gnos Chasadim, and ultimately B'chol D'rachecha D'ayu, B'chol Masech Hashem Shemaim, all his doings for the sake of heaven and all his ways, knowing God, finding the God and godliness within creation, introducing overtly godliness into creation. That is the ultimate objective and goal. Why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this world, why he gave Torah mitzvahs, why he sent the neshama, the Yid down here into Elam Haza Hagashmi, which is of course a great yerida, a great descent, a great plummet. Talk about it. We need not to. And the ultimate purpose is the Yid takes matters of Elam Haza and elevates it, refines it, sublimates it, introduces the Emes Hashem Le'olam into this very physical world. So in order for that to happen, Hashem needed, or Hashem decided to, that there should be again, by design, the manner and fashion of creation in the spirit of ex nihilo, yesh mi'ayin, that there's a kind of cessation of the awareness of creation, the creator, and creation comes about. And we have to find creator in creation. Does it mean that there's truly Hashem removes himself? Of course not. We just said it's not only he controls and he gives certain energy and he gives certain function that the world should go on the way it is. The whole entity, the whole mitzias, you can't say, oh, there's a part of the battery, not a physical, we know where the battery is in the device, but let's say, look at that stone, there's probably a place where Hashem placed his energy that stone should look like and be that stone. It's beyond that, right? If you look at device, you say the device is a device, and there's a battery making it work. Every piece of plastic and every piece of part of that speaker or whatever it is it's not. There's no energy in that plastic, and there's no energy in that screen for the speaker, as an example. So that's there's the energy, which is the battery energy, as an example, which is making the device work, but every part of it is infused with the energy of the battery. No, it's not. When it comes to even a stone, and I say a stone because it's the inanimate you can imagine of the tree and the leaves and the botanical, the whole entire botanical world and the animal world and so on, where there's movement and there's more life, we can appreciate it much more. But even the stone, there's not one particle of the stone which doesn't have Hashem's created force and entity in it. So every part of the stone really is just an extension of Hashem, of the Almighty. Because without that, if Hashem would take, let's say, a quarter of an inch of the stone and not imbue that energy, that would disappear. The stone would be a quarter of an inch smaller because it would disappear. The only reason why it's there is because Hashem is pumping energy into it. So every part of creation is imbued with Creator 100%, with the energy of Creator 100%. So its whole mitzvah, its whole entity is Creator. Yet conversely, it does not demonstrate its Creator. It doesn't identify even. To the contrary, it says, no, here I am, the Creator. What are you talking about? Like a Pari said, it's my Nile, I made it. Bari made nothing, and he just had this illusion because he was part of the fabric of Elam Hazah. Or he says, Mi Hashem, who is God that I should obey him, to listen to him? Pari could not identify this hierarchy because, and he woke up that morning is because Hashem decided that he should wake up. And if he was living another second, as Hashem was giving him his energy to live, but he does not identify and he denies, which is really the epitome of the default state of Elam Hazah, as we all know it. So this is such a great paradox. On one hand, we say everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On the other hand, Creator doesn't. We have to introduce Creator into creation. Answer is yes, because this is by design. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in a way of yesh me'ayin. So let's see it inside over here. Let's see how much we can accomplish over here with the wording of Mishkaz upon Leiro. He speaks back to Moshe Rabbeinu, and his perception was Mepedig Eli and the Netzach the Zoh, which again, this was elaborated on in the previous chapter. We want to go on in Yutes of Moshe Rabbeinu's Nevuah, and again in the connection to what we learned this past week. So, and again, this little past line, you see it in real detail in the previous Igeres, in Yutes. Again, it's a click away, or wherever you're learning Tanya. But on this site, tanyaland.com, it's a click away the Yutes. You can see also, it speaks about the Pani Lo Yirov Moshe Rabbeinu, conversely, Vero Isa Sachairai. And what Moshe Rabbeinu saw, where was the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu, where did it initiate, where was it, etc. The Rebbe goes on, the involvement of the Olah, the effect, it's surrounded by its cause. So not only recognize it, but it completely stands in complete self-annulment because it knows that the reason why it came into being and it exists is because of that Elah, because of that cause. And he goes, how much is it stand with that self, with that annulment, and that sense of nothingness in the face of the Elah? It could be to the extent like the ray of the sun within the sun. Now, this idea was explained in a number of places. You have the Shaykh of Emunah, you have later in Pedig Lamed Gimel and Lukuti Amorim, when he speaks about the nothing, Baruch Hu is there before creation, it's the same Hashem after creation, it's not before creation, there was God only, and then there was no world, and after the world, creation created the world. There's two entities, there's God, I'm saying this briefly, but nonetheless, just to understand it thoroughly. Yet after creation, there's Hashem and a world, right? Hashem is in control of the world, but you can't say that it's the same exact state as prior to creation when it was Hoyu Shmei Levada, because Baruch Hu solely was there. As we can all understand, appreciate it. Now there is Hashem and a world, so he's in control. How much is he in control? 100% in control. Every detail of Yoda, every single nukud, every single detail in Olam is controlled by Baruch Hu. Granted, but you can't say ostensibly that there is no world, that there's only Hashem exactly the same way it was before creation. How can you say that? We see this creation. He's in control, but there's a creation. So we say every single davening, we proclaim before we start davening to bring that closeness of Hashem. That's the message also Perek Lamed Gimel in Tanya. It's the same God before creation and after creation. You see, creation, it's not there's a change. It's the same oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to express himself with creation. That same oneness decided before creation to express itself without creation. But the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is totally manifest in an exact same manner. Exact same manner. See there, it's an exceptional message. Of course, when you know that, you feel the closeness of Hashem. Again, we could appreciate it instinctively, just hearing that message. It's exactly the same. So Hashem is here. Well, before so many before creation, everything's Hashem. I would be, the finite is completely batul, completely not 100%. Not only a bit recognizing its infinite creator, but when there's the presence of infinity, anything finite loses itself to the energy of infinity, to the extent of becoming total batul. And sees as nothing, as no thing at all, which means anything finite cannot stand in the face of infinity. So when we realize that it's the same Hashem before and after, of course it brings a certain bittul, a certain self namely the message the appreciation of the closeness of Hashem. He's not only Eibush there, removed, but he's here now. Take a look, Lamed Gimel, precious chapters, L'Kuti Amorim. You say it every chapter is, but this is something which is a game changer. The Rebbe says, really, this is Dira B'Tachtein. They'll take a look there. And one of the things Alter Rebbe uses a mashal, he's giving to mashalim, one of Chaf Aleph, right? It'll click away, you can see it there, L'Kuti Amorim. And then the other, I believe it's the first time in Tanya that Alter Rebbe introduces Ziva Shemesh B'Shev. You look at the sun. So you have the luminary, the sun itself. And then you have the ray coming from the sun. Right? Someone says, I opened my back door, the sun was right in my backyard. No, the sun was not in your backyard. The sun is millions of miles away from you. It's the ray of the sun, which has brightness, warmth, pleasantness, of course. So what do we appreciate? It's the ray. What brings the light, the warmth, all the benefits of the sun is the ray of the sun. So now that ray, where does it commence? Where does it begin? On the surface. Of course, once you have the ball of the sun, and the ray begins out of the ball of the sun. But the question is, if it's able to begin from here onwards, wouldn't you say 100% that ziv is within the sun? The terminology in Gemara would be kal v'chaymer, which means, of course, it's in the sun. If it has the ability to express itself once there's this cessation, in other words, the sun, the ball of the sun, the luminary, the luminescent, the sun itself ends, that's where it's able to express itself. So how much more so it's within the sun itself? If it can express itself out of the sun, for sure it's in the sun. The only thing is, in the moyer, in the sun itself, it's a non-existent entity. Because it's overwhelmed, not only overwhelmed, there's nothing else other than the moyer, the luminary itself. You could take a look there, and this is just, we don't even have to repeat it. So where is it? Could you see a little bit of it, of that ziv? No, you can't see anything of it. Because what is in that space is just the moyer, the luminary, the sun itself. After the sun, then the ziv comes, and again, to expression, and into its expression and manifestation. But within, it exists, but it exists in a way that is completely bottled, like non-existent. That's how much it feels its moyer. That's how much it's part of the moyer. Beyond feeling, it's part of the moyer. It's part of the luminary, part of the sun, as an example. And so too, we look at a candle. What shines out of the candle is, of course, within the candle. But within the candle is the fire. So it doesn't have its entity. It doesn't have an entity. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says, that the Eilim, at the end of the day, have the same bittul, because Hashem is Shemayim V'Zorah Tanimolei. The whole Eibishter is here, in this very physical world. So the whole Eibishter is this. So how does the world look like? Yeah, that's by design, as we said. We're going to say this Yesh Man, but when you talk about Ilav Olul, the Olul appreciates the Ilav to such a degree, similar to the Ziva Shemesh. Within the Shemesh is what the Alter Rebbe is saying over here. And how could it be different? If it has the sensation of it, so there's no end, and it feels, my whole being is because of the Ilah, my whole being is because of the cause. So there's a instinctive nullification. a sense of not only submission, but a sense of nothingness, a sensation of nothing in the face of the Ilah, because it knows my whole being is because of that Ilah. This comes from the Ramesha Cordova, which was the famous Rebbe of master of the Arizal, and then he goes on. When you talk about Ilah v'Olul as such, it would be an impossibility. It would literally be impossible that anything finite, even beyond finite, physical, would be created, even though this Ilah v'Olul would go on myriads and myriads and hundreds of millions of, and each one would be, in other words, levels of evolvement, and each one would be a minimization of the energy, because that's the point of Ilah v'Olul. There's a somewhat a subtle decline. Chochmah more powerful than Bina than Das, Chesed than Guru. So Chesed is the chief midah, as an example. And because you're talking about the infinite Chayach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is present, and it doesn't disguise itself, which that's the idea of Ilah v'Olul, the Olul recognizing the Ilah. That Olul, that effect, is becoming the cause of the next effect. So there's always a connection. It's like a chain, pretty much. You get the longest chain, you move the bottom of the chain, you're moving one way or another the highest level of the chain, because there's some connection. Is this the lowest? Yes, it is, but it's connected, seamlessly connected one way or another with the highest. And in this case, yeah, of course, Olul, Ilah, then there's a decline in the energy, but nonetheless, it would never, because you're talking about the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, would never create something finite, be able to create something finite, which is going to say that's the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to introduce a different system, Bria Yesh Mi'ayin, the ex nihilo idea. But let's see it inside. Many concealments and contractions over this light. It would never produce something so physical, tangible, like he said stone, he says dust, earth as an example. From spiritual entities, from on high, to ultimately end up in a physical pile of dust, impossible. And afilu shalom malachim, even of angels, which is already a decline, if you will, from the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because angels, in the end of the day, also are creation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not, an angel is not God, it's a messenger, it's very close to Hashem, but it's a created being one way or another. Rebbe has it in Likutei Amorim, in Shaykh and Emunah. They're also part of the Elikim, the Bereshis Bar Elikim, as opposed to the Havaya, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is exclusive to the Yid Chilik Havaya Amay, to that extent. So he says, even from Malachim, even from angels, which already are creation, they would never from an angel evolve with the myriads of different steps of decline and contractions and concealments of the previous energy creating the following, and the following creating the following. It would never end up being a physical, finite item, as he says, we mentioned stone again, like a pile of ofar, of earth. Impossible. Yeah, you have the Ruach HaBehema Pnei Sheir, it says from the Pnei Sheir of the Merkava, again, it's figurative, but it's the four which carry the throne of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One of them is the energy of Sheir, again on high, a very holy, lofty, holy level. So it says from that evolvement you could have eventually the spirit of the Sheir down here, which is the ox down here. And again, through myriads of tzimtzumim, because that's a holy entity. Pnei Sheir, Pnei Nesher, the eagle, Pnei Aryeh, and Pnei Adam, which carry the throne, not to go into it now. So from the Pnei Sheir on high, yeah, many, myriads and myriads of, and eventually could be the Ruach, the style of the Behemoth. That's why it says the Sheir has a lot of koyach, a lot of energy, because it evolved from this energy which carries the throne, Kaviyachol, so they say metaphorically speaking, because so in its style, it's explained in a number of places in Kabbalah and Chassidus, but what you have is the spirit. The spirit is intangible. There's nothing tangible of the Ruach HaBehema. Yeah, that could ultimately come, even though the difference is vast and stark. This is the shade of the Merkava, Hashem's chariot. This is a Ruach HaBehema Lamata. No comparison. And therefore, there's myriads and myriads. Can't even say a number that it should come from there, but yet it can evolve because it's an intangible spirit. And in order that something physical should come about, for that Hashem, so we say, change course from Ilah v'Olul, And Ilvalu exists because the spheres and many ideas on how do evolve one from another in the manner of Ilvalu, the cause and effect evolution. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu not switch, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu introduced this idea of Bria Yesh Mi'ayin, the ex nihilo phenomenon, that there is a creator, which is creating, but a complete cessation, a complete disconnect on the surface, of course, because it's beyond connection. It can only exist because of the creator, as we just said. Every second. And then Hashem pulls back, it just disappears. So this whole mitzvah, this whole entity is Hashem, but nevertheless, on the surface, Hashem established that there should be a created, meaning in a way, ex nihilo, meaning to say that the creation does not identify or appreciate it instinctively. It's creator. That's Yesh Mi'ayin. It's called Bria, creation, Lashon HaKodesh. And the reason it's creation, which is, by definition, creator, creation, two separate ideas, two separate worlds, Hashem is the creator. It's a different idea completely. And we don't see, when we say creation, Hashem created the evolution of the creator to creation. The truth is, as we just said, it also has that total insignificance in the face of Hashem. That is also completely the same nullification, by definition, to the light which shines in it. He's going to explain later from the godly energy, but he says it's the kelim, the containers of the 10 spheres of Atzilus Bri Yitzira Asiya, which we're going to learn about. Is the Eidos and the containers, the light, and the containers of the light. Well, of course, we'll delve into it a bit later. The Kavod and Soba Baruch Hu Meir Bahem, that the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu shines in them and gives them the koyach to create. And therefore, because it's a godly energy, in the face of Hashem, in the face of the infinite God, everything is a non-existent entity, not only a bit submissive or very much submissive or subordinate to. No, it's completely self-nullified, because nothing finite could stand in the face of the infinite. So by definition, from the perspective of Hashem, it's also Ziv Hashem B'Shemish K'mishukos Bukot Yamar M'Chelik Beis. As the Alter explains, even creation has that same nothingness in the face of the creator, similar like to the ray of the sun when it's in the sun. What's within the sun? It's only the Moyer, it's only the sun itself. And the truth of the matter is, Ein Mabadi. There's nothing else within creation other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything is truly nullified, ultimately nullified 100% to its creator, and stands with a complete bittul. By definition, from the perspective of Hashem. But if you look in the terminology of Chassidus, down to above. That's the literal translation. Which means if you look at creation from the perspective and the lens of creation, you look at the created being, you see it's kind of completely separate in its knowledge, in its perception, from its lens below. Because this energy which is pumped into it, is infused into it, it's not perceived, it's not appreciated at all. The Rebbe says, klal u'klal, not at all. Tell us about it. Look at creation, creator. It's like you're not even talking its language. But you are right now just a mere extension of the creator. Your existence is only because of Hashem. Okay, but Musag, tell me about it. Let's talk about it. Let's learn Chassidus. Let's find out how, in the end of the day, the world is batul kiziv Hashemesh b'Shemesh. Ein eid milvadei. Hashem hu elikim. But from the perspective of the creation, instinctively, ein musag al writes klal uklal, not at all, as we know it evidently. And for that matter, ein arich zel hazeh klal uklal. Le'miktzasei me'arich shmeil el leila. And the truth of the matter is, there is no erech, there's no kind of relation in the end of the day. The way Hashem created this Bri Yesh Mi'ayin, that the Yesh should look like a Yesh to its Ayin. Could you compare that to the relationship of the erech of the Ol to the Ilah, the effect to the cause? The effect always appreciates and knows much of its cause. And therefore, but let's say this knowledge, this perception, establishes that very bittul. I'm not, because what is really the ilah. I'm a production, and a production which is constantly dependent on the ilah, as we mentioned before. That passion you have to that program, as an example, the moment the mind says, not so intelligent and not so beneficial, that immediately diffuses the gravitation, the passion towards it. So the Olu always understand that its mere existence is the ilah, is the cause, and therefore it stands with a constant bittul, even when there is the expansion of that ilah and the as result the Olu, in this case the emotion, that passion, that drive to it, it's in its full expression. It also understands that it's always just because of the ilah, therefore that recognition, and therefore it has that bittul, it has that self-nullification, constant, perpetuous self-nullification to the Olu, to the ilah, that is, through its knowledge, through this perception. And what they are, it's not necessarily the grand difference. This is ilah, is Olu. And not only that, this is ilah, this is a cause, this is in other words, and this Olu will produce another ilah. There's even a relationship between them. And therefore they recognize each other, and therefore the Olu stands with a total sensation of bittul to the ilah. And you can't compare it. You cannot compare it at all, the difference of the created being to the energy which pumps and is infused into creation. It's the ex nihilo establishment, so the yesh does not sense the ayin. And it's two different worlds. Not only doesn't sense it, this is ayin and this is yesh. And this is the reason why it's called yesh me ayin dafka. As we said in the very beginning, how could you call it? Chassidus asked the question, yesh me ayin, something from nothing? It's the opposite. The world is the real ayin, and the real yesh is, of course, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why would we call it yesh me ayin? It's an ayin, garnished, hevel avolim amar shleima, as we know it. As we grow older, we see the insignificance of it, and the real yesh is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be ayin, not yesh mi ayin, but ayin mi yesh. Answer, with familiar instinctively is the yesh. From the ends of the yesh, the ayin is an anomaly. The ayin is something new, and therefore we say yesh mi ayin, meaning to say it's so distant that ayin, like I have no idea what this is all about. That is the distance of milmata l'mayla through our lens of the yesh and the ayin. And again, milmata l'mata, it's the same. Milmata l'mayla, as we explained before, no reason to repeat, but from our lens, this is why we consider that this is an ayin. What? That's how distant they are, and therefore, in the sensation, the yesh does not immediately recognize its ayin. But this style of creation, of evolution, of Hashem did in order that the physical olam should be created. Now we can understand, how could a physical world, finite physical world, come from an infinite creator? So when you're talking about the evolution of ilah va'ol, of course that can never happen. From an infinite God could never evolve anything finite. Of course not. With as many as you're going to, the evolving energy is going to descend or continue, as many numbers as you're going to give, and in many levels you're going to give. In the end of the day, a fraction of infinity is also infinite, and it'll never produce anything finite. Yeah, in the end of the game, at less Racha Behema from Lahavdil Pnei Sher Shalamayla, that could happen. An intangible spirit, but something finite. How could it come from an infinite God? But when HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to establish this phenomenon of Bria Yesh Mi Ayin, of the disconnect, at least on the surface, or only on the surface, of the Yesh and the Ayin, so of course something finite, because that is the way Hashem, that's a style, that's a design Hashem established in order to create creation, that there's a kind of a block that creation should not identify, should not feel the creator, even though again it's his whole mitzias, its whole entity is the creator, but it's this is a design, by design establishment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu established this yesh mi ayin ex nihilo phenomenon, that there should be a complete non-recognition of the Creator. Oh, so the Kaviyachal, you can even say the infinity, because Baruch was able to halt itself and create something totally new. So it can be finite. Why not? From the perspective of Yesh Mi'ayin, yeah, the finite energy could come about, and it does come about. This is Elam Hazagash. The ultimate purpose. Why would Hashem do it? Again, as we mentioned, that the Yid should be able to introduce the Emes Hashem La'elam. As we mentioned, again, we'll just try to conclude the today's class, as he's not speaking about the objective, he's speaking about the two ways of the involvement of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way of Ilah Ba'ol and Yesh Mi'ayin. He's going to eventually reach different types of messages and where this and how this evolves on high. The Eiris, the Kalim, as he mentioned, Al Tereba mentioned this very briefly in the lines we learned till now, which we will elaborate on. But just to note, again, this is where we're going to stop today on Kuf Lamed, the fourth line, Behine. But just to note, in the end of the day, of course, this is, we say, by design. The B'ri Yesh Me'ayin is by design. There's the objective, the goal of the Yid. Should Nisaba Kol Baruch Hu Lisla Dir B'Tachteinim. If it was just Ilah Va'ol, and it's so easy to pick up in the godly reality, and then there's no physical. Again, physical cannot come about from Ilah Va'ol. The spirits and the spirits easy to recognize as creation. It's not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. Even we can appreciate, like Hashem wants. Does he appreciate the service of the malachim, of the celestial angels? Of course he does, but that's not the ultimate objective, because it's so easy for them. They're programmed to identify Hashem on high and everywhere. Baruch Hu created the Bria in the way of Yesh Mi'ayin, that the Yesh looks real, and from the lens of the Yesh, it doesn't recognize the Ayin. And the Yid, through his Aveda, Teira Mitzvahs, ultimately opens up the window and says, no, even the Yesh, at the end of the day, it's about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Emes Hashem La'elam, that message of Eined Mavad. In the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here exactly the way he's on high.